Welcome to Music Ed Tech Talk, a podcast exploring the topics of music, education, technology, and the intersections between them, with a special focus on the productive and creative process. I'm your host, Robby Burns. This week I'm joined by technology trainer and speaker, Katie Wardrobe. But when I do like the little thing before the conversation cues in, is there any... Like, you'll notice I left this blank here. Like, what is, like, the one-sentence way that you identify yourself and prefer to be?
I keep changing it as well. Like, I've even changed it on my own podcast. Like, I change it every couple of weeks. I'm like, nah, I don't feel like that's quite right either. What do I normally say? Education, or technology trainer and speaker. That's probably really it. It's so boring sounding, though.
But accurate.
Coach, a tech coach. Yeah, I know. I do keep changing it.
I think about this a lot. My website says percussionist, music educator, blank. And like, I play with the technology, like having a book about technology and like writing about it and having a podcast makes me feel like something should be there. And I in a cheeky way on Twitter, I call myself a technology hype man, but it feels like selling it a little short, but I also don't know that there's a word really for...
No. And when people introduce me, they'll say technology expert, but I don't like that really because I'm not an expert in all the things. Like I just know what I know, or I know enough about things, or I'm one step ahead of whoever I'm training or whatever it is. So, I mean, maybe that's true. It's all relative, isn't it? You know, compared to the average teacher, maybe yes.
But then technologist is another thing I've been called before, and I don't know why, but that doesn't seem like something I should be called.
It sounds like you're in a white coat in a lab or something.
Right. Technology enthusiast, like lots of people are that, so I don't know. Well, if you figure that out, let me know.
I'll try, yeah.
So this is one of the things that I feel like is worth acknowledging as far as like, speaking topically, like what are the things we want to talk about today? I mean, you are someone who does, I feel like, of the voices in music education who are like prominent technology voices, I do feel like you are one of the few voices who like you do have, like there are things that are in your wheelhouse, but then I feel like also you make a lot of effort to be very broad, at least have like a general knowledge of a broad number of technological things.
Yes, absolutely. But I would not claim to be an expert at certain things. Like I don't have training in audio engineering at all. So I only know enough to get by and enough to teach the average music teacher staff. But the people in that I Teach Music Technology group, those are not people that need my help, generally speaking, because they are already at that level and they just need the pointer of the right name of a software program or, you know, go check this YouTube video out. They don't need express help. You know, they're more expert themselves. So... yeah, and I don't try to, I don't teach Ableton Live because I just don't use it. I'll just send people to someone else. So, yeah.
I guess that's a pretty good segue into somewhat of an introductory topic. So I can't imagine anyone who is aware of and listens to this has not heard of Midnight Music. I mean, like definitely now in the past 10 months. If someone already was not aware, they should definitely be aware of your website. It's an amazing resource. You've had a couple of things you've done in particular that have been super viral since COVID, a couple of articles. Like I can't imagine you're a music teacher and you haven't been to your website, but how do you describe Midnight Music and like what it offers to the music teaching community?
Yeah, and I will just say, I do get messages or tagged on Facebook from people who have said, oh my gosh, I just discovered this Midnight Music website. So, and I don't presume that everybody does know of my website and who I am, but it's nice to see that too, because it's a reminder that there's such a big number of music teachers out there in a big wide world. But yeah, in terms of what I do, really it's focusing on helping teachers get a handle on technology for their teaching life. And I've decided over time, I kind of ended up distilling it down to different areas because, like you and I both know, you use technology for your own personal productivity or creating teaching resources and so on, and that's one area. And then there's the technology that you use with students, and that's a different thing altogether. And even then it can be broken down into, you use technology to capture things for the purposes of assessment or archival purposes or tracking digital portfolios, but then you also use technology to create and compose and that side of things. So there's all these kind of different areas, different buckets of uses of technology. So the thing I laugh about is when someone asks that question, which is like so broad, when they go, I want to get more into technology, where should I start? It's like, oh my goodness, well, how long have you got? So yeah, what do you want to achieve? And sometimes they don't know the answer to that well, what do you want to achieve question? And I think that's where it becomes hard. So breaking it down into those broader areas can be useful for people. I think technology can be daunting at times, and the thing that I love the most is people who let me know that they've tried something, and it might be something really small, and it's worked for them. And it's such a thrill to hear that from people. So that's what keeps me going.
And your website is, I love that it is sort of like one of the first things you see when you start scrolling is sort of these sort of like overreaching sort of, I don't know about like topics, but just like clumps that people think of technology in, because people tend to associate technology with hardware. So you have sort of like iPads, Chromebooks, Macs PCs, things that people sort of look at and say, that's technology. So, yeah. And that's the one that I've just got like 20 of for my classroom. So help me. That's the one. I want to start there.
Yeah. I have to tell you a funny story about that actually, and those categories. So, you're referring to on the website, there's these, I think there's 6, or did we do 8 in the end? 6 buttons, 6 icons, and they have different areas. So you can click through if you want specifically help with iPads or Chromebooks. But then there's ones which are like elementary music and middle/high school, and then like free technology. And I've struggled for years coming up with those categories, because they are not categories that match one another, if you know what I mean. They're not all part of the same overarching broader category. They're all kind of different categories, but yes. that was in response to, what do people come to me, what's the question that they say or ask for or help that they're looking for? And it is, oh my gosh, I've got a class set of iPads. What do I do with them? Or I'm an elementary teacher, where do I start? And so they're kind of like, there's a lot of crossover in those two. You could have a Venn diagram with a big section in the middle which crosses over, but those are the questions. So, so that's what I ended up doing on the website. And it follows through into my private community as well, where we're currently reorganising stuff to fit into those buckets as well. But yeah, super hard because it's so broad. It really is so broad.
It is. Well, this fits one of the overarching themes of my life involvement with technology, and certainly what I do on this podcast is I think people who ask that are maybe like, and I understand like that comes from a place of desperation, especially if you've been thrown into online learning. But that's really not the question. Like, the question is, what's the problem I'm trying to solve creatively, as an educator and as a musician? And then if you are desperate enough to find, you'll eventually get to where you're going if you just say, help. But I think when you more specifically try to say, like, how do I want to solve this problem? How does this affect my kids? How does this affect my workflow? Then the tools support the actual ends, which are musical ultimately, and you sort of work from there. But I still think it makes sense to have it organized this way, because people do, if they aren't lumping their technological ideology into like a hardware device, they certainly are thinking about, like, do I teach elementary school or middle school, or do I want something free? I think it makes sense that that's one of the 6 circles. People want free stuff.
Free stuff, I know. And I've struggled with that a little bit over the years, because I love the fact that there are free things out there, but it's kind of like, people deserve to be paid for what they make and what they do. And there is an attitude from some people that things should be free. They have a right to have free access to free things, which I don't think is true. I love the fact that there are free things, because on the other side of it, I also love that there are free things that teachers who don't have a big budget can get access to, and therefore they can do some of these things with their students, tech-related things, composition, capturing ideas and so on. So I think that's good from that point of view. But, it's kind of like, you're always going to get better service, better features, with paid options. And, people, there's a lot of work that goes into even a free app or website, like so much work. just to maintain it. I'm sure the app developers, they probably just think, oh no, Google's had another update, Chrome's had another update. Now their app has to update as well, or the app, the Apple iOS ecosystem has an update. Then all the apps have to update too. Like, it's just such a nightmare to keep up with all of that. So I admire people who run in free services and just getting them going and keeping them going.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, the energy and the time and the money, I mean, it all has to sort of balance out in the end. I mean, certainly good paid software. You reminded me of last episode, Paul. Well, let's see. To someone who's listening to this, that will no longer be the most recent episode. But anyway, recently Paul Kafasis from Rogue Amoeba was on, and they're like premium Mac audio apps. They are like $50-$60+ apps, and that was exactly his point. He's just like, you have to put food on the table if you want. And he said we aimed to make really good apps, and then the following will come if they need that. Not, I think sometimes in music, well, I won't say in music so much, but definitely in education, we have this sort of expectation where, we're expected to have the resources given to us, and teachers already give so many resources, time, energy, and money to get by in their classrooms that I think it makes sense that they want a free thing. But at the end of the day, the paid thing will often be the good thing.
And do you know what I equate it to? And someone told me this years ago, and I've never forgotten it, and it applies to lots of things in your life, where if you're paying money for something, and it can be anything, it could be an app, or it could be the services of a person that's going to come and help you, like a gardener or a cook or something like that. If you, don't want to do that thing, or don't have the capacity to do that thing, or the time, paying $50 to save you a whole heap of time, or to do something that's going to reduce down so many headaches in the long run, like, that to me is totally worth it. So, and it's funny because the Rogue Amoeba apps, Loopback is one of my, more recent, in the last 12 months, favourite, like, life-saving pieces of software. That because, and for those that are listening who haven't used it or don't know, I mean, it's Mac only, but there's an equivalent, Black Hole, I think. I haven't used it, but for PC users. And, it's a way of internally routing and organising all of your audio stuff, and it just means that you can more easily share audio on a YouTube live session in a webinar. I can share the audio from my Keynote file, from me speaking, from the YouTube video I need to play, from Garageband if I've got that open, Chrome Music Lab, and it just makes life so much easier. And it was super easy to set up. It took me like 5 minutes to set up. And it's done. And that whole headache of how to manage audio when you're particularly in a live situation, it was totally worth paying whatever it cost me. I think Australian dollars, because also it's more expensive for us here. So it was $120. I don't know, something like that, $100.
Right.
Totally, I would pay it again. I would just happily, it's just so good. So for me, paying some money to solve a problem, or even it pains me to watch my kids play with apps on their phone, and all the adverts pop up, and they're like, "Oh, hang on, we've got to just wait for this ad to run." I'm like, "How much is it to buy the app?" And they're like, "Oh, $3." Oh my gosh, just press the button and buy the app. Like, seriously, if it's something that they're using a lot, like, please get rid of the ads.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. How you get, I always say, like, how you get from point A to point B matters. And it's the same as playing a piece of music. Like, you can play two different levels of quality. The same, a band can play the same piece of music, and you can have two different levels of quality of how two different concepts of phrasing, two different concepts of intonation. When I'm rerouting my audio around, why would I not want to do, if I can, afford to, why would I not want to, do that in the easiest, most direct way possible? That's kind of how I think about it.
And in recent years, particularly, my time has become more and more precious. I'm a, solo mum with 2 boys, and, managing a household with just one adult in it, it's different if you've got a couple of adults, and time's very precious running my own business. And so I equate it often to, if I pay money, will this save me time? And yes, it will, because not using Loopback means that I spend hours of headache time, searching for solutions or troubleshooting, or it's just so painful. And so using an app that provides a solution saves you time, you're done. Just be done with it. So I love it.
You mentioned something else too that sort of connects to this but I would have brought it up anyway because it's just interesting to me, this idea that sort of two of the main categories of technology, like there's personal stuff that you can use, and then there's student-facing stuff. And I think that as that relates to paid versus free software, you know, I was definitely someone who was firmly more knowledgeable about personal, you know, technology that I could run on my own personal devices that I would definitely, like my students would benefit. Like I think my students benefit from me having a knowledge of health apps because I'm more healthy and mentally sane when I teach. So my to-do app, all of my stuff that I was managing on my own personal machines that I had bought on the App Store with my own personal money, like that was affecting my students one way or another, but it was not the same as this growing category of cloud-based student-facing software that's often free or has a method of like a business model where you probably aren't really going to be getting use out of it unless your district is paying for it anyway.
Yeah.
And so that's always an interesting distinction because I think, you know, there's things that like Music First, Noteflight, Learn, Soundtrap, all of these cloud tools that have come out that run in a web browser, you know, these are often things that if you're using them in the classroom, awesome. But teachers are so variable with how, you know, which of those tools they have experience with, and they often don't have control over which ones have been decided for them. And that's why exploring the things that I can control has always been so much more interesting to me in technology.
Yeah, I do feel the pain of those that are subject to whatever their district has decided or school. We don't have districts here in Australia so much, not quite like the way you do, but the school will decide, or if it's a government school, the department will decide often for all the schools, you know, what certain things are going to be. So, and I think particularly in the last, you know, 12 months or just under now with the whole coronavirus thing, one of the things is the option that they have for live conference calls, you know, so Zoom versus Google Meet versus Microsoft Teams. I mean, that is usually the thing you have no control over, you know. Mm-hmm. I feel really sorry for those that are on Microsoft Teams if you're a music teacher, because you just have fewer options available to you with all the things, audio especially. But yeah, that's really hard, and you just got to make do. But yeah, I think so too. I also think that with free, I think that some teachers don't also consider sometimes what's important with free software, what's missing. So, for instance, Soundtrap and Noteflight, for instance, you know, if you take those two, yeah, you can sign up for a free account. You could have all your students sign up for a free account and use them. And yes, there are limited features, but often teachers forget that when you pay, you get more features. But one of the things is the privacy is not in place with the free versions because they are designed for general public, you know, regular, in inverted commas, people and not school students. And so when you pay, you get this awesome ecosystem and you're protected, and you get all those features where you can share assignments back and forth with students and so on and see them in your classroom in those apps. And I think people really, they don't feel that that's important, or they don't realise that that's missing when they're using the free one. And it's probably okay if you're working with older students, maybe, you know, the very upper grades, year 10, 11, 12, that's probably less of an issue. But if you're in middle school and below, you really need those paid versions to get that ecosystem and to be legal and have the privacy. So protection.
Between the security that you're talking about and then the finance, those have been the two major reasons that my school district has held out on some of these tools. Like the main two that we got starting at the beginning of this fall, we've been online since last March, and Noteflight and Soundtrap have been the two of the major financial resources. And I don't know what changed, because I'm pretty sure that the technology, because I had been barking up this tree for years before this happened, and I don't know that they actually changed their software strategy. Basically, there was a protocol that we used for all of to do single sign-on between all of our apps. Something would have to use what's called a Clever in order to integrate with our Canvas and our Google Doc. We do use Google Docs, but we call it something different. We call it like the Google suite of apps. Basically, these are all integrated with Clever, and if a service didn't have Clever built into it, we wouldn't be able to use it because it was lower security. Well, I don't know that Noteflight or Soundtrap integrate with Clever, or if we're just desperate this year, but we finally got it.
That's so good. I feel sorry, actually. In Australia here, there's one of our states, oh man, they just keep moving the goalposts for that sort of thing, for approving or not approving certain apps. Actually, Soundtrap often like teachers are using it and then one day they just can't use it because something's changed in the department, and they're like, you know what, no, we've decided no for that one. But it doesn't filter down to the teachers until often you're in front of a class and you just can't use it. So yeah, it's not so good. Oh, hard work, very hard work when you're subject to other people's rules.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's interesting because this is when people talk about music education technology, these student-facing services they're a big part of the conversation, and I feel like I'm only just now, since last March, learning to enter into this dialogue, and I still am finding at times that some things are they're out of my control. I mean, and I kind of want to maybe come at this in a later topic, so we don't have to totally dive into it now. But I mean, there is this, connection between paid and free and premium and mediocre apps. There's also this connection to like what runs in a web browser versus like what is a truly developed native app. Like my Zoom experience right now is better because I can run it in an actual app that has control over my system audio ins and outs and my video. Whereas Google Meet, which runs in a Chrome tab, not quite the same experience.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it is. It can be really hard.
I don't think we're getting that. That is all to say. I don't believe that I'm going to get a Mac version of either NoteFlight or Soundtrap anytime soon. So
no, this is true.
Hold my breath, or not going to hold my breath, I guess.
and also, just one last thing on that. Actually, I've also realised that there's things that I will use for me personally, and then there's the things that, teachers would use with students. I mean, I don't have students, so I can't speak to that personally, but like for notation software, for instance, most people know I'm a Sibelius user. That's what I've just used for all the years. If I'm doing things for myself, notation-wise, I'm using Sibelius, and for that reason, I prefer the features involved and all the things. But, to be honest, it's overkill for a year 8 student. Like, they do not need all the features of Sibelius. So NoteFlight is a great solution, or flat.io. Both of those are really good options. So then it comes down to technology for me versus technology that you would use in the classroom with students. And some teachers don't mind that, having, learning two different apps for them to use personally or for them to use with their students. And others kind of like, I barely have time to learn one app. And I'm like, that's okay. If NoteFlight is working with your students, stick with that. You can probably do most of what you need to do notation-wise for your own work as well, give or take. So yeah, that's been my philosophy too.
As a user, an advocate of power tools, but also someone who's a middle school band director, like I do have to reconcile the fact that 95% of the time I am just writing whole notes and quarter notes into my score editor.
Especially if it's a tuba part,
Right.
I used to in Sibelius, if I ever had to do tuba players, I'm talking beginner band level stuff, but if I ever had to do a tuba part for something, I would speed up the tempo in Sibelius, drag that slider to the right and go really fast and record in real time. And so like a whole bar would be tick, 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 tick.
Right.
I would just record all the whole notes really fast. And then I'd slow it down when I had to do the flute part or violin.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, that reminds me, this is maybe not on my topic list, but I think the last time that we were speaking, I recall you saying that you were really on the verge of trying out StaffPad for... did you recently get an iPad?
I have not had time to do that, and no, I haven't upgraded my iPad, so that's that's on the cards still. That it's been pushed down a little bit because I'm currently working on this video creation course for music teachers, and my MacBook Pro, so I've got a 2018 MacBook Pro, I think is the model. 18. And anyway, it's got 8 gig of RAM, which can't be upgraded because it's a unified,
right.
RAM, whatever they call it. And yeah, I'm like, I just need to upgrade a little bit. The MacBook Pro is totally fine for most of what I do. And I will keep that for travel, and I want to work on the couch, so I'm going to have my laptop there, But I'm like, I need to upgrade. So the iPad's been pushed down the list a little bit, the priority list, because I think I'm going to get a new Mac Mini. Well, a new to me Mac Mini, and I'm currently tossing up whether it's going to be the Intel Mac Mini or the M1 chip, which is not that long out. And I'm leaning towards the Intel one at the moment, but we'll see. So the Intel one has more options to go higher in RAM, and the Mac Mini one looks great. Reports are kind of mostly good on it, but it's a little bit new for me. I'm a little bit averse to, I'm not an early adopter with technology, and particularly with operating systems. And a Mac Mini with the M1 chip, you can only get Big Sur on it. And I'm like, I'm not ready to go there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it might be the Intel Mac Mini, I think, for now. I may upgrade down the track, switch it over or something, but yeah.
I'm biting my tongue so hard right now.
Are you? Oh, come on, talk.
I'm steeped so heavily in I listen to like 5 or 6 different podcasts that are all just Apple commentary.
Yeah. I've been watching YouTube videos, to be honest. It's super useful because you kind of get the real world view, but yeah. Okay, tell me what should I get? Tell me.
I just really, I'm a little well, no, I shouldn't call myself conservative. I'm pretty risky. I run like the iOS beta software on my, when they release the public beta of the next iOS, I always install it on at least one device. And if it ruins my work, it ruins my work. Like I just love that the day that it finally is ready, that I know how to use that device, because as the people who are actually like in that industry, all that people who write about that specific tech, as they are learning these things, I'm also able to try these things, like even small little features. Like I saw on Twitter the other day, someone was like, I just learned that if you take the Apple Pencil and you swipe up from the lower left corner of the screen, it takes a quick screenshot and you can annotate it. And I was like, cool. Yeah, it's a really cool tip. And I was like, I knew that tip because like I was running the software when that was like fresh, hot, off. Yeah. So I'm risky and reckless, but everything I've read about these M1 Macs says that we're 40 years into personal computers being this sort of thing that they are, having these sort of like the keyboard and mouse graphic user interfaces, and things are already, cell phones are already so iterative that you don't really need to buy a new cell phone every year or two to stay up on the latest. You can let your cell phone go a little while. So you don't expect a 40-year-old platform to make a year-over-year jump like this, but everything I'm reading is so overwhelmingly enthusiastic about how big the performance jump is.
I know. This is what kills me. It's and this is why I've for it's more than a week now, I'm going back and forth between the two. So I am actually going to go into an Apple store and chat to whoever's there and see what they think. So, but there are some drawbacks. There's Bluetooth issues. I don't know. I'm reading all this stuff, and I don't have time to wait, because I need it quite urgently for this, recording video stuff for the video course. What I would do in a normal time is wait 3 months or 6 months and just let things settle a little bit, let them release a few updates, get the bugs ironed out, whatever, and then get it then. But I'm kind of like, I need something now.
It's tough. It's really tough.
It's really tough.
Are the Mac Minis, the Intel ones, cheaper now that the M1 is out?
Kind of, but not really if you need to upgrade all the things. So once you click, like you're looking at like a fast food menu. Yes, I'll have that, and I'll add that, and I'll add that. So if I go higher pretty much for all of the options, yeah. And in Australia, man, it just feels... I was on the US... I didn't realise, and I was on the Apple website, which was the US one. If you just type in apple.com here, it usually defaults to the US website, and sometimes it'll say, hey, it looks like you're in Australia. Do you want to visit the Australian website? And why, yes, I do, because otherwise the prices are not correct. So I'm looking at the US website and I'm putting all the options in. I'm like, okay, that's not so bad. It's just over $2,000 if I go for all, like a lot of the upper options. And then I went, oh, hang on. Oh, I'm on the US side. And so I clicked the button, switched over, redid all the options. It's more than $3,000 for what I was looking at. And that's when I went, maybe I'll just go the Mac Mini. Anyway, the M1 chip.
Yeah.
I'll report back one day and tell you what I ended up getting.
I'm really anxious to know now. I know that my next one, like, I think I'm on the verge of, like, I'm starting to tell that my computer is old, but it's not at a point where I couldn't keep it for a while. Yeah. And you have to, like, everyone is different. Like, I know people who keep Macs around for 10 years. I know people who like upgrade it every 2 years and like are really comfortable selling stuff and getting good money back for it. I'm like every 4 or 5-ish years for me.
Yeah,
but
that's me too. I'm about every 4 years or so. And sometimes I'm shocked when I look back and go, oh, I didn't realize I'd had this for so long. And often the turning point, the tip over is nearly always to do with video editing. So, things start to run slowly. You make an edit in a video editing program and then it takes place about 4 seconds later, you know what I mean? Like it's all just, and it starts to kill you. You die a little bit inside every time, and it becomes frustrating. And it comes down to what we were saying before about saving of time. I'm like, you know what? This is something I use. I live on this. This is my primary work tool, and I need a decent one. So I know I am still considering the M1. I haven't decided fully, but you can go up to 16 gig on the M1 chip. That's the max. You can go, if you wanted to, you could go up to 64 on the Intel, but there's the trade-off of everything else is kind of faster on the M1 as well. That's what my research has shown me anyway.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. Yeah, I think the single core performance is faster on the M1. And I don't always know how that equates to real life world experience, but my understanding is like something like, because I have a 2016 Mac, so I'm really considering if, let's just say that like in the next 12 months, MacBook Pro with like an up, whatever's the next generation or like a beefed up version of that, like that, I would jump, I think, all over that. So I'm asking the question, like, where would I see that difference in performance? And I think it comes down to things like that feeling of like editing something, those kind of like snappy responses are the things that the M1 you would definitely notice improvements with.
Yeah. When you press save and there's the rainbow wheel, it just drives me nuts. It really, and it's worrying you. Like I'm paranoid about backing up so often because video stuff is obviously you're doing it on your local hard drive. You're not doing that through the cloud at all. So you need to remember to back up your stuff and plug your time machine in and stuff. So it's hard. Yeah, and that was what I ended up looking up on YouTube, and there was a lot of options to see video reviews from. I specifically looked for people who are video editors and what their review of the M1 chip was, and versus Intel and stuff, because I could care less what the average person who's using it to surf, surf the net and do regular stuff with. I mean, it's all about video and audio, so it was interesting to see their reviews. And I'll probably still look out for them. There's things popping up all the time.
Yeah. Well, you're reminding me of something I definitely wanted to talk to you about today, which is, you have learned some of these professional tools for making stuff because the nature of your website and, the blog posts you make, the podcast you have and all of your other teaching resources is like you're doing things with graphics, you're doing things with the web and HTML, and you're doing videos and stuff. Like, what are some of the tools that you like to use to make stuff?
Yes. Oh my gosh, such a good question. And it's funny because it's all the things that teachers wouldn't see. Well, they see them, but they don't realise that's going on behind the scenes. It's not like they see me using that. You would see me using Sibelius, YouTube video, but how did I make the video? How did I post the video? How did I put it on my website? How did I create the thumbnail image? And it's so funny. I've been saying to my own boys who are teenagers now, you know what, there's a few skills I think which are so important to learn in this day and age, which are going to serve you well whatever job you end up with, and that is video editing and some basic graphic design, like editing of images and things like that, and also basic HTML. And all of those things I learnt on the job, literally on the job, because it was out of necessity, and I started a website back in, it's probably 2008 or so. And my first one was made, do you remember Apple iWeb?
Oh, I loved iWeb. I loved Apple iWeb.
I had an iWeb site for a while. And then I'm like, this is not real. It was very clunky. And my gosh, web design, just building a website, it's so much easier these days, like back in those days. I mean, and probably at that time it was easier than it had been 5 years previous. But
right.
Back in that time, you really needed to know HTML, at least understand how it worked. And that took me a long time to learn, how you don't need to remember HTML code because you can just Google that anytime you need it. But you just need to know the concepts of how it works. And when you look at a web page, there's like the pretty view, and then there's the behind the scenes text view, which does not look pretty and doesn't look like what it looks like to the public. But that's where you can really get nitty gritty and work out what the hell's going wrong on this page. And there it is. I can see, the HTML's gone a bit wrong, or there's extra letters in there. I don't know, something. And learning that was so useful, and learning video editing, just general video editing, even just basic stuff. And then the graphic design side of things too. Those three things, honestly, if people learnt those, if my boys learn enough about those, there's, most jobs they're going to go into, or if they want to do something for themselves, they're going to just be in a much better position. And it's funny because as teachers, who would have thought you'd need to know this stuff as a teacher? And then yet here we are, and particularly in the last, 9 months, whatever we're up to now, like lockdown periods and stuff, like the need for video editing has risen dramatically amongst music teachers to understand how to do that if they want to create videos for their students. And that's why I've ended up deciding to do this course. But it's just such a great skill to learn. But with the graphic design, I know you wanted to talk about Canva a little bit, but the graphic design side of things, I just needed to know how to edit images to put on my website, and I needed to know how to do things like crop the image or reduce it down in size, or I wanted to put text over the top of the image, or I needed to remove a background. And who even thought that you could do that? And oh my gosh, you can remove the background behind this other thing that's in the picture, and it's amazing. And then you can put that picture on another background and it looks really cool. And all of that stuff, I really have over the years mostly used Keynote for that purpose, and just done image editing inside Keynote, and then maybe used something like a screenshot tool. I've used Snagit for years and years and years, and I still use that now. There may be better options out there, but Snagit's working for me. It's still working for me. It's great. And so I use that, and I can do all these things. But Canva came along, and I think I heard about it maybe on a podcast or something. And Canva is this online graphic design tool, and it has a free option. You can just sign up and use it for free. And if you are using a paid option, you get access to a lot more of the elements that you can use in your design. So the thing about Canva that really it tipped me over into using Canva all the time is that they have a design library of elements. So if I need a picture of a monkey, I can go into Canva, type monkey in, and I will have about 400 different monkeys to choose from. There'll be photograph ones versus drawn, like, graphic ones, what do you call it, illustrated sort of versions, clip art style, and there will be any number of a realistic monkey, a cute monkey, a monkey that looks happy, a monkey that looks sad, and you can put them in, and they've all got the background removed. They are elements that you can freely move around on your design and place them where you want. And in addition to things like that, it's got frames and lines and patterns that you can use in your design. Just got so many things in there, and it just has become my one-stop place to do everything. So all designs that you see, all images on my website, a lot of the ones in my Keynote files, I have often designed something in Canva first and then put it into those other places. But it's just been such a great tool. And then teachers started using it, and they actually started this education account just over 12 months ago. They did Canva for Education, where teachers can sign up for a free account and then apply for their education version, the upgraded account, and it's for free. So teachers can get access to all of these extra elements for free as well. And the templates, there's a whole stack of templates too. I didn't even mention that. So if you want to start a design for a poster, you can look through their templates and go, okay, I want one that is laid out in that sort of way, and then I'll put that on my design, and then I might change the font, and I'll change the colours and switch out the background image. And it's just such a great tool. It doesn't do everything. There's a few things that annoy me that it can't do, like in terms of the way you edit images, but for the most part, it's all great. It's just fantastic. So that's been a huge change, just using Canva. And that came along a few years ago now. I adopted that one really early, actually, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And it started by Australians. There you go.
Yeah,
Australian
there you go.
Run
Wow.
company, yeah.
So I had no idea. I've purposefully sort of because I have tools for this kind of stuff. I spent a lot of time really getting into the deeper features of Photoshop over the summer. And I'm being the Mac nerd that I am. I have there are really Mac OS friendly competitors to the Adobe stuff. Like Pixelmator was one of my recent App of the Week picks on this show, and Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo are these are apps that are often they're premium priced, but they're nowhere near the $10 a month Photoshop. They're like one-time purchases. They look and feel more like they belong on the Mac. Like if you've used iWork or something like that, like Keynote Pages, like you're going to feel more at home. And but the Canva is, I've heard there's just so much buzz surrounding it, but I've purposefully resisted setting up an account because I wanted to just soak up your passion and knowledge about it before I dove in.
Did I sound passionate? Yeah,
I think so.
And to be honest, if you are someone for me, I have used other graphic design tools in the past, and there are some things that you're going to find bug you in Canva. Like for instance, in any of the Mac apps, you can select, let's say, 4 images that you have on a page, and you can go into the width and height settings and just type one number into the height, say, of the image, and they will all magically match that height, whatever pixels you set or centimeters or whatever. And that's fantastic. There's nowhere in Canva to select images and type a number into a box to say exactly what you want in terms of the sizing. So you can select multiple images and drag them all bigger or smaller at the same time, but dragging, it's not the same. I want precision. It needs precision sometimes. So that's something I'm missing from Canva. But there's probably 2 or 3 things like that, which are probably going to come at some point for a start. And you can kind of get away with, I can live without them because there's so many other fantastic things. And for Canva, it's that collection of library of elements and templates. I can't tell you, when I say there's a lot of stuff in there, you can't believe it until you go looking and you just go, oh my gosh, I don't know, it's 40,000 of this and 400,000 templates of this. I don't know. I'm making up numbers, but there's a lot of things included in there, which will, again, help you save time because you get started with a basic design and then you can change it and add it and stuff. And sometimes, if I do want to design in a different app, you can put the element or elements plural that you want, that you found in Canva, and you can export them from Canva. You can download them with a transparent background and then put it into your other, your other app. So I do that sometimes too. But yeah, I live in Canva now. I'm in there nearly every day. My team, people who work with me, we're all in Canva. Well, a couple of us are in Canva a lot. Yeah, it's great.
It's awesome. So I guess what I thought prior to this conversation that it was sort of like a watered down Photoshop tool that it runs in a web browser, and it sounds like to some extent it's accomplishing that, but it also sounds much more resourceful in terms of you're licensed to use a lot of graphics.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and you pay for that. So if you've got the free account, you can see all the paid elements in there as well. You can see the paid things in there. So when you're in the free account, you can add anything that's a free element, and it tells you when you're looking at them, into your design and use them at no cost. If you want to choose a paid element, you add that to your design, and when you download your design, you can pay for it on a one-off basis for an image or an element of some sort. If you've got the pro account or the education account, you can use all of those at no extra cost. So you can download them and use them for no extra cost. So I ended up doing a whole course on Canva last year. I did it in July. It was June maybe. It was fantastic because I ended up thinking teachers need to know about this and how fabulous it is for creating teaching materials, because so much of the time I see in Facebook groups, people ask the question, where can I find free images, or, where's a great place to get clip art? And, you can go searching online to all the different websites and you can download a thing from here and a thing from here. And again, you're just looking at all these different locations and it takes a lot of time up searching for all those things. And I'm kind of like, if you just go into Canva, you type in the search box and it's inside Canva already. It's just there, and you're probably going to find more options than what you would on the, just by generally Googling. And so, yeah, I've ended up doing this course. I think we had about 800 teachers doing this course at sort of like together over a course of 3 weeks or 4 weeks or so. And I did modules where you had to create a design. Each module was a different design. So the first one was like create a poster. So I ran through how to do it in Canva, and then teachers had to share the designs that they'd made. And oh my gosh, the creativity, it was so phenomenal. And the funniest thing that came out of that course, which I did not predict at all, was that all the teachers in the course were creating teaching materials for the purposes of the course and sharing them in this pop-up Facebook group that we had. And someone started saying, hey, I love your design for that worksheet. Do you mind if I use that with my class? And so all the teachers started sharing their designs with one another, and I ended up setting up collections in a place where everyone could download everyone else's designs, because we ended up with this repository of Canva templates of hundreds of worksheets and posters and like animated graphics like GIFs and videos and all sorts of things. So it was this amazing, I just did not predict that would happen. It was such a great extra thing that came out of this course. So yeah, so that's been, I think you mentioned in your, like the show notes, I'm giving away stuff here, but in the show notes about what's, one of the favourite things, well, no, what did you say? Technology that you receive the most positive feedback from. And I reckon this is definitely one of those tools where I think it's one of those ones that you didn't know you needed it until you look at it, and now you cannot live without it. It's that kind of tool. So yeah, definitely one of those ones.
I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to hit the ground running with this. So it seems like the teacher account gets you all the same stuff as a paid professional account. Is that the right interpretation?
Pretty much, yeah. And I've been careful not to say it's not identical to the pro account, but there was only like 2 or 3 things which were not in the education version, which were in the pro account. But at least one of those now is in the education version because they had so many people. There's an effect called background remover. So if I added a photo of myself into Canva, I could click a button and it would remove the background and leave me, as with a transparent background. Right. And that one feature was in the pro version and not in the education version. And all the teachers are like, come on, we need this. And finally, they've added it in maybe a month ago, maybe a couple of months ago now. So thank goodness, because when I put the course together, the bad thing about putting the course together is that I don't have an education account. I've got the pro account. So I made a video like, here's how to remove a background. And then the teachers are going, I don't see that button in my account. And I'm like, oh no, it's not in the education version. Right. So I had to then make another video saying, okay, I'm so sorry it's not there, but I'll leave the video here in case it gets added in. So now it has. A couple of things like that. I feel like there was one other thing too, but yeah, they're pretty much the same. And I think it's important. What we found with a lot of people, because I had a lot of people applying for the education account for this course, like all at the same time, we found out it's best to apply with your school email address, because then it is more obvious that you are a teacher. And after you've applied, you have to fill out a form. Or I haven't seen a better form, which, you have to verify that you're a teacher. So you have to send some kind of proof to them. They've got a list of options there. If you don't hear back from them, one of 2 things has happened. They've either just upgraded your account and you don't even know. So keep checking. You log into Canva and there's a place where you can check what type of account you've got. And lots of teachers were thinking they hadn't been upgraded because they hadn't got a notification from Canva. And they go in and they're like, oh, actually, I do have the education version. It's just been magically upgraded because it's a cloud service, And the other thing is you can just send them a message saying, hey, you might be working through a backlog of people right now, but I haven't got my verification. Can you check it? And they will. They're very responsive on Twitter. That was the piece of advice that I was offering to people. You just DM them on Twitter or tag them or something, and they're pretty good at getting back.
That's good to know.
Definitely give it a go. Add it into your toolbox.
No, I'm using it right here. I mean, and this comes. I just keep coming back around to this whole idea of like web software. Like I have become more comfortable with using software that runs in a web browser for if anything, just because I am in front of my computer more now than I ever have been. And it's like less convenient to like have a bunch of tabs open, and like, cause I don't have to like, I'm a pretty mobile person. That's why the iPad has been such an important thing to me, is like the more I can like just pick up whatever screen is closest, and like that's going to have a window into my data. the better. And, web stuff is unfortunately, like, it doesn't integrate into the file system. Like, I can't search the Spotlight for something I've made in Canva.
I know. I love Spotlight. Oh my gosh, I use that like all day, every day. Yeah. And I'm so shocked when people don't know that if they've got a Mac. Obviously, it's Mac only, but yeah, I'm constantly Command Spacebar looking in my Spotlight for things. I have been with you on that whole web software versus locally installed, but I've much more moved into the web software and been more comfortable with it, except for a few things. There's just a handful of things, and it's mainly like video. Can't let that go. That's got to be locally done,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it depends what you're editing. If you're editing something really simple, WeVideo is going to be great for you. And to a certain extent, WeVideo is going to meet the needs of a lot of music teachers. But for me, I just need it locally. If it's going to be a little bit more complex, it's not going to cut it necessarily in the web browser. But yeah, for most things, I really have moved over to web. I made the break because I work with people who are all in different locations literally around the world. We live in Google Docs, all the variations of Google Docs. So, docs and spreadsheets and everything, and Canva as well, because it's web-based. People I work with can log into the same Canva account and see my designs and change them and duplicate them and alter them and all the things. So we really do live a lot in cloud-based stuff now. But for my own personal things, I won't let Sibelius go, really. Like, I'll still use that.
I know.
Yeah. But, yeah, and that's often for things for me, like the video editing too. It's things that only I need to use the video software. So, it's just me doing the editing, so I'll stick with that.
Google Docs has, and I don't know if they made this change or if Apple did, but there's one tiny change that has made it so much more tolerable for me to use. And it's because, Google Docs has some obvious strengths. Like, I don't, like, all Office and iWork now do the thing where you can like share a document with another user and they can open it in a web browser or in the native app, and you can both be typing in it at the same time. And of course, Google has such a lead here that like no one even, my school is an Office 365 subscriber and we use Outlook predominantly for email, but like nobody knows that instead of a Google Doc, you could just open up Word and then email me a link and I can be typing in my Microsoft Word into the same thing that you're typing into. But Google does have some things. I mean, I feel a little bit more confident that Google is syncing. Like if I type, we're sharing a Google Doc right now with some notes. If I type a character into it, I know that you're seeing that character on the screen, like pretty much the instant that I type it.
Yeah.
But anyway, but again, this thing, like I love the Spotlight, and Google Docs will now on iOS will appear in the Spotlight search on an iPad and an iPhone, which is great. And then this is my main thing. On the iPad, I regret that there's no like sense of like having a desktop space. So but you can put the files. So the Files app has a widget. I have a statement later about widgets, but you can basically install a widget for the Files app on the left side of your iPad's home screen. So that permanently fixed to your home screen is your 8 most recently modified documents across all of your. So if you're using the Google Drive app, it'll actually now show your most recently opened Google Docs from the Google Drive app in that files. And I'm like, yes, finally, I feel like I'm using the same computer, even if it's the iPad or the Mac.
Yeah. I have to say, oh man, the file management on the iPad, man, that's just been so hard over the years. It's still hard. And I found that people don't even realize there is that Files app. Do you know what I mean? And in fact, if you utilize that well, that's the big problem with something like GarageBand. You're using GarageBand, you want to either send a file somewhere from GarageBand or get a file into GarageBand from somewhere. And that, it's been notoriously difficult over the years to do that. And it seems like something you would think that would be one of the primary things they would work out first. But, it's been hard. But people don't realize that of anything, the Files app, of course, that's going to be a really good option because it's an Apple thing and GarageBand's an Apple thing. And that's going to be easy to access inside GarageBand and, as a portal, essentially. And so saving things into there or getting them out of there and organising things in there, it's just, it's so much better. But like a lot of people just don't realise it's a thing. And I think I even was late to the party. I mean, it's probably a couple of years ago now, whenever it came out, I was like, oh, what is this Files app that's appeared on my, with one of the updates, it just like magically appeared. as most things do with Apple. And and I was like, okay, this is good. This is actually kind of the answer to a lot of the problems that have been in the past. So so that's what I mostly use. But I still do find it's confusing when you're inside an app and you're browsing your files, say in GarageBand. It's just, there's different views and different things show depending on what settings you've got chosen. And then you like, why can't I see this thing? You need to check another box or go into a menu and turn it on or turn it off. And
right.
It's still not a perfect thing, but it's better.
Yeah. If I'm in the Files app and let's say I put an iWork, because you can on the Mac, you can check this setting that will sync your desktop and documents folder through your iCloud drive. So I have that checked on. So what I do on my iPad is I basically just keep all my documents in the desktop or the documents folder. It's like more temporary if it's in desktop. So I can put an image on my desktop right here on my Mac and then go to my iPad and then open the desktop folder in the Files app and it's there. But the thing is you can also like link Dropbox and Google Drive and OneDrive into the Files app. So like your stuff from those drives show up in the same interface, which is kind of cool.
I think that's when it got better. It was just that easy access to things, man.
But GarageBand is crazy, though. I have to send you a blog post I wrote, like, I feel like maybe 4 years ago now, because there's this feature where I forget which direction it went, but like Logic, the headline was like, Logic can now export to a GarageBand project for the iPad or something like that. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to have fun trying this. So I did it, and then my whole blog post ended up being just entirely about the file management workflow because because there are 3 places that a Mac will save, well, by default, not even just talking about you put it where you want, but there are 3 GarageBand folders on a Mac. One of them, I'll tell you them all now. One of them is the local, like it's in the music folder, that local folder that by default you have on your Mac where your iTunes music goes. It's called GarageBand, and by default it will save any projects to your local hard drive in that folder. Okay, done, easy enough. Well, then inside of your iCloud drive, there's a GarageBand for macOS folder and a GarageBand for iOS folder. And any GarageBand project you try to save, like it's not like a Pages or a Keynote where the same file works with the same features no matter which device you're on.
Exactly.
You have to
They're too different.
Yeah, you have to run a process to get something that's in your something in your GarageBand iOS folder to you have to transform it into something that can live in your Mac folder, which then can be opened on the Mac. You throw Logic into the mix, and now you've got just to get something from your Mac to your iPad takes 4 or 5 different files being created.
It's insane. This is what I mean. It's just like, why is it so hard? Yeah.
Because I feel like video is it's a long time before we can do really good cloud video, but I feel like the internet speeds and I feel like the technology is there where I could do something I feel like this podcast is just going to end up being 2 roughly hour plus long audio files. That is easily something that I have the bandwidth to sync over the cloud. So if Apple could be, I just want them to be the first people to either, whether it's Logic or GarageBand, to say, hey, we've got a digital audio workstation. All you got to do is put the file in iCloud Drive and it'll just open on iOS or Mac.
Yeah. That would be good.
That's my dream. I don't know. I tend to go on at least one pipe dream tangent on this podcast at every episode. That was it for today.
I love it. Yeah, you just want life to be easy. I think that's the key.
Totally. Well, what are the things that I feel like we're potentially halfway through this list here? Maybe. I mean, how long do you have? I don't want to occupy your whole, because I know you've got plenty of things to do.
I'm all good.
This could be just a little bit inside baseball, but I'm just curious. Your podcast, first of all, people should listen to your podcast. I like it. It's really, what do you do? You say maybe 2 or 3 episodes a month about?
Yeah. In my mind, in my dreamland, there's an episode every week, very consistently. Right. And in reality, no, it's not happening. So I have bursts of consistency. And so, if you look back through old episodes, they'll be for 6 weeks, oh my gosh, an episode came out every single week. It was like a miracle. And then, right now, I've been attempting to get one out for about 3 weeks now. And, doing this video course, I am I'm a little bit behind. I'm going to be honest, a little bit behind where I want to be with this video course. And so I'm kind of in that, do I just forget the podcast until I've at least got 3 modules completed for this course and then worry about it? Or do I just, if I do that, it's going to be ages, so do I just get one done? I am working one at the moment, but I would like it to be weekly, and at some point I do try, in my general life, productivity-wise, I try to batch things. I mean, this is the best way to work, really. You batch process stuff where you can. So if it's solo episodes, just me talking, where, a lot of them are, I can sit down, and if I prepare 2 or 3 episodes, I can then just hit record and record 2 or 3 episodes in one day. And then I'm good for the next 3 weeks. Happy days, a bit of editing. But it's hard, and if it's interviews, of course, they just happen when they're scheduled, when it works for the other person. So you can't, generally speaking, you can't be doing 2 or 3 of those in a day. Like, it's just impossible. It's one, and then you might do another one a couple of weeks later. So, yeah, so it's hard. But the solo episodes, in a way, are easier because it is just me, and it's where I can just slot it in, and it's me, trying to not maybe make it too long, because podcast episodes don't have to be long.
Right.
I do longer ones always with the interviews because I just get talking to people and I like chatting, and I'm so interested in what other people are doing. But, solo episodes, I try to make it a very targeted, here's 5 tips about this, or here's 3 apps that will do this, or here's, I think I did a 2-part one called 22 Ways to Use Garageband and Soundtrap with Your Students. So I split that over 2 episodes, and because it doesn't all need to be, really long episodes. So at the moment, I'm working on, I've got like 3 episodes, or I've got a whole list of episodes to do, and it's just a case of sitting down to do them. But I love it, and it's just a good way of sharing tips in a different format, really. And sometimes it's better to share them on a podcast episode, but then there's other things where I was going to make an episode recently. I can't remember what the topic was, but I thought, that's just not going to translate to an audio format. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. So it'll be a YouTube video, and that's fine. Yeah, so it's always that weighing up. But I really do enjoy it. I think the podcast, it's such a funny medium. Like, you would have this as well, where I record, things get published and it goes out, and you really have no idea if anyone's listening, or if they care, or if they enjoy what they're listening to. And it's made me try to make more of an effort to leave reviews on other people's podcasts,
yes,
or to comment,
totally,
or tag them on Twitter or something. And I really don't do it enough. I actually was going to set myself like a calendar or event or an alarm or something to, like, okay, go comment on 3 podcasts, right now. Just do it. Because the podcasts that I listen to, I love. Like, they are part of my life,
Right.
And the ones that come out consistently, I'm like, yes, it's Wednesday, so-and-so's podcast episode's going to come out. Oh my gosh. And it's also been, and I've said this before, for me, it's been the way that I have learnt the most over the past 10 to 12 years. I started listening to podcasts about 12 years ago, and it's been a regular thing every single day from then, like every day. And they fall into all different categories. They're education technology ones, they're music education ones, they're music ed tech ones, and then there's a whole stack which are nothing to do with music or education, which are just like interesting things, interesting stories, or interesting, I don't know, topics which are discussed. And such a way I've learnt about technology over the years. This is where I often hear about the latest app or an update, or, something's changed in Google Meet. People think that I'm like keeping up with all these different sources of information. I'm like, no, there's just like 4 podcasts I listen to, and I get it all from them. Like, really, I get everything from them. And so then I'm like, oh, that sounds like a great app. Like, someone shared, here's a little app thing that I discovered recently through a podcast. It's called, and this is such a simple, silly thing, it's called Profile Pic Maker. And you go there, you upload a photo, and it automatically removes the background from your personal photo. So you're just left, and it puts you in a circle, and it presents you with about 24 different versions of you in a circle with all different backgrounds. And it looks amazing. So if you want like a really slick looking profile picture for all your social media platforms, or just to even use in a keynote presentation, like here's my introductory slide and here's a cool picture. It's such a great, cool thing. But I just heard about it on a podcast, someone just mentioned it, and I was like, hey, that sounds good. Yeah, really worth checking out. So Yeah, from that point of view, this is the way I learn things. And the reason is because a lot of people say, I don't have time to learn, I don't have time to sit there watching videos. And it's like, well, podcasts, I do. I'm always doing something while I'm listening to a podcast. I am nearly always washing up, cooking something in the kitchen, cleaning the house. I'm out for a walk or a run when I'm running, injured at the moment, but not running. But, at that point, I'm listening to a podcast or I'm in the car. And so I'm always doing something. I'm making use of this time and multitasking in that way. And it's not taking away from the thing that I'm doing, but I'm just learning stuff as I go. It's just such a great way to learn things or just to pick up information. And no, I don't remember everything I hear, but I remember to write it down to go back to it later on. I'll be like, ooh, I should check that app out. Or, oh my gosh, that's a great tip about using this, or that's a great shortcut that someone's mentioned. I'll just make a note to go back and, test it out or check it out or explore it later on. Such a great thing. So what about you? You must, same.
Was that?
In terms of learning and things, you must listen to a lot of podcasts too, do you?
I do, yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Technology is like a big chunk of it because I think people who are technologically inclined just tend to be more willing to learn the tools to make podcasts, and therefore there are a lot of good tech podcasts. I mean, people ask, how do I learn all the stuff I learn? I just follow a couple of blogs and listen to a couple of podcasts. It's easy to say. I mean, some of my favorites are I really like. Specifically, just since we've spoken a lot about Apple products, I mean, I really like Upgrade, which is Jason Snell's and Mike Hurley's podcast. The Mac Power Users podcast.
Yeah, I used to listen to that one, actually. I got a bit overwhelmed and I went, you also have to kind of pick and choose what. Yeah, I should go back to that. I do this thing where I'll listen to a podcast a lot for a while and then I'm like, I think I might just leave that one for a bit and then I'll bring another one into my repertoire. And then I'll often go back to ones that I used to listen to. So, yes, I should go back to that.
You can cherry pick the Mac Power Users really well because it's super topical. And, yeah, I agree. It's overwhelming. It's one of the reasons why when I do this show, I try to make really good show notes. Like I have a blog post that's like associated with the episode where there's like clickable links to stuff because I just know that like if I were when I'm listening to the Mac Power Users, I don't have to stop and take a note. when I get home, I go to the... like actually the show notes show up in most podcast apps now. You just scroll down past the play controls and then you have little tappable links. And I even, while I'm talking about meta level podcasting stuff, I also do chapters for every episode. So if you're right now, for example, a music teacher, and you're thinking like, I don't care about podcasts other than that I listen to them, you can actually skip this conversation and go to the next topic because I will have put the chapters in. So that's, it's a big part of my life for sure.
Yeah,
I can't do the dishes without having a podcast in my ears. It's like not.
And do you know what? It makes you look forward to mundane tasks. I'm like, oh, yes, I've got to do the dishes. We do not have a dishwasher in my house, so I am the dishwasher. My boys do other things around the house, like it's their job to like mow the lawn and do all these other things, but I do the dishwashing. So, but I actually strangely look forward to it because I get to listen to podcasts and. That's actually the time where I save up YouTube videos that I need to watch. So if for instance, at the moment, I'm giving myself a crash course in DaVinci Resolve, video editing software. And like, I just need to kind of churn through a few tutorial videos, to see best practice of how, like, what is the better way to do this or the more efficient way. So I will just have them on while I'm washing the dishes. On my iPad, I've got a stand for the iPad. It's fantastic. You can tilt it all the ways and it's really strong and sturdy. I have that sitting there and I'm washing the dishes and I watch YouTube videos. I churn through them like that. It's fantastic. I also listen to most of them at 1.5 speed. Not the podcasts. I don't do that with podcasts, but I do with YouTube videos, tutorials.
I'm there. I'm up to...
Make it go quick.
I'm up to 1 point. You're going to think I'm an insane person. I'm up to 1.8 podcast listening speed for...
No, I don't like it with the podcast because it makes me... I don't know why, but it makes me anxious. With the tutorial videos on YouTube, I'm like, please get on with it. Like, just, I want to go 1.5 at least. I've tried double speed for the videos, but it's too frenetic. And podcasts, I just find I get too wound up when I'm listening to people speak in my ears at that speed. So I've got the Apple AirPods in and I just need the normal speed for that.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for listening to it with the tech ones, I won't do it with the music ones. Like there's a new podcast, which I'm going to refer to later, that I really like called The Third Story. It's a music podcast. It's all interviews with musicians. And it just so happens that the taste that this host has in music is really similar to a lot of what I've been listening to lately. So he's got great interviews with artists that I really care about their philosophy and worldview and process. And I just don't want to not, I wouldn't ever dream of listening to that in anything other than like the cadence of the actual conversation, how it was unfolding in person. So, but when I'm listening to a tech podcast, I mean, I'm just, like the Mac Power users, I just want, feed me the apps, let it come as fast as possible.
Efficiency. It's a good thing.
So you talked about it kind of being like a black hole, and that you almost don't know like what people think. Like, do you use like what kind of analytics do you use to like measure? Now I'm getting really meta because I'm just curious. I have recently moved this show to Libsyn just because I wanted to know, were there enough people listening to it that was actually worth me? Because if there were like 5 people listening to it, I wasn't going to do too much.
Because you just don't know. It's like I was saying, it's such a weird medium, because when you are when you're in front of a group at a conference and you're presenting, you see people, for a start, you see how many people are in the room. You also see their reactions to things that you're doing. Right, so you go, okay, they're liking this, or they're with me, or they're laughing, or you can tell that people are enjoying it. And podcasts, you just have no idea. You're talking to nothing. So yeah, Libsyn, I've been using Libsyn since the start too. And yeah, it's good because you can see number of downloads. So for people listening who might not know, as a podcast producer, you cannot see how many people subscribe to your podcast. Who knows why they won't let us see that, but you can see how many downloads you get per episode. And you can go back through forever in time to go back. So recently we actually, at the end of each year, we published like a list of the most popular blog posts of the year that went onto my blog. And also I said, let's do podcast episodes as a separate thing. So that'll come out, I think, later this week, actually, at the time we're recording. And yeah, it'll just be a list of the most popular downloaded episodes that were released in 2020. But it was super interesting going back through and to see what was the most popular episode, like of all time, for instance, and just things like that. Like I find it really interesting, and it informs you of what you might do in the future. It's like, oh, clearly this was something that resonated with people. I'll go back and do another one of those. So yeah, so I do look at them as well. And you can see, I mean, you probably looked at this too, like the countries, like where are people located in the world who are listening to your podcast? And for me, it's funny, as an Aussie, and this is true of my website as well, most of the people who go to my website and who listen to the podcast are in the States. And I think the States and Canada are the top 2, and then Australia is a little bit down the list, like 4th maybe. And then there's like random listeners. It's so funny. You can hover your mouse around this world map and see like there's someone in, I don't know, some like some small location in South Africa, or in some island, like there'll be an island in the middle of like blue ocean, and you're like, where even is that? And you'll see that there's a little country or a little island somewhere, and there's 3 listeners there. Like, who are these people? Yeah. But fascinating to see where they're all located. I love looking at that. Yeah.
It's so interesting. Yeah, it has encouraged me that actually I should take some time to keep this up to some degree. But it's interesting. And again, it just all comes back to like, what are things that are interesting to teachers, and what are the things that are student facing? I would have to make sure, but something that definitely continues to get downloads when I check the stats is episode 14. I had Teresa Dusaku on, and we talked a lot about like Google Apps and Jamboard, which are super topical right now. Like everyone is using these tools, and I'm like, I was
listening to that episode the other day, actually. I had it downloaded, and for some reason I hadn't listened to it when it first came out. And I was scrolling back through just like a week or 2 ago, but I've still got that episode to listen to, because I've got a big backlog of unlistened things.
Oh yeah, that's a real problem for me.
I stress out after a while, and I just kind of delete lots of things, and like, it's because it becomes, you feel like it's a to-do list. It's like, no, I don't have to do this.
Exactly, right. This is for me.
And this is why I unsubscribe. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm just not listening to that at the moment. But I'm constantly deleting their episodes for whatever reason, not because it's bad, but it might be, I'm just not into that topic right now. So I will unsubscribe from that podcast and then probably go back to it at some point. But yeah, I was listening to her episode as well, and she's great. She's great.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome. Yeah, really, really cool. It's fun. It's fun to talk about this, and this reminds me too about your blog. I had another inside baseball question about your blog and Canva.
Yeah.
Did you do all of? Because I really like your headers. You know, like the graphics that are at the where that the title is fixed over. Is that a Canva template or something you made in Canva that you reuse?
Actually, no. Well, it depends which page you're on. Yeah, it really depends. So, like are you talking one of the pages which you click through, say, like if you're interested in iPad stuff, that one, or...
I think it's the blog. No, it's like the CSS of your website. The blog sites have like the title is sort of like like...
Oh, yes, that is Canva. Yes, I know what you mean. Yep, the blog post, like the feature image. Yes.
Yeah.
It's on an angle, yeah. Robby's indicating with his hands for those who can't see what we're doing visually.
Just drawing like a line.
And I knew what you meant. Yeah, so yes, that is in Canva. I actually I needed to get a new logo done, and I just wanted like the color palette decided and organized like by a proper graphic designer, and fonts and things. So I think it was last year, maybe the year before, I had a graphic designer come and kind of like do a package. And so she came up with a template for Canva, which we now use. So
cool.
There's like a title and like a coloured banner across an image, and then the text of whatever the title is on there. Yeah, and so that's all in Canva. So that's the great thing about Canva. You can set up a template which you can then share very much like a Google Doc. You can give it's kind of like when you do that make a copy in Google Docs. You can do that in Canva. And so she did that. And yeah, so we just use that. Consistency is so much a thing on websites. Like if things are consistent, just everything looks better. And having consistent images like that with the same font used and the same colours used, colour palette all the time, really makes a difference. And then when things get shared on social media, like I notice it with other people I follow, oh yeah, that's one of that person's. You can see at a glance that it's a Tony Vincent thing that is being shared. You go, okay, yeah, that's Tony's style, or whoever it is, So yeah, so that's Canva. Yep.
This is one of my next things. This is on my list of longer term things, is to get my act together on this, because I throw together those background images, because the way that my website does it is whatever. If I choose an image, if I put an image in the post, it'll by default make that the header, but it doesn't. If it has text in it, it won't look good because the title will be fixed. I've just I gotta figure this out.
This is the pain that I've been through over many years, and it is so painful. And once you've got it worked out, my tip is to, when you get it looking good, instantly write down what you did, because like if it's like me, you'll forget, and then you'll go back to it like the next week and you're thinking, oh, what was the thing I did to make it look good in the end? So
right.
I have a big product. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I have one of my big productivity things is to record processes for everything in the business, because if someone gets sick in my business and they are the only one who knows how to do whatever task, then it's going to be very bad, or if they can't work for a while. And I mean, coronavirus has been a great example of things can go wrong in a very short period of time. And so in the business, but also for my benefit, processes that are written out. So there's a separate Google Doc for each thing. Like it might be like how to add an image to your blog post, and there will be a process, and sometimes it has literally 3 steps, and sometimes it might have 23 steps, and occasionally there's screenshots involved in the document. Sometimes there isn't, because you don't need it.
Right.
But everything's recorded. So I've particularly done this over the years with things like when I'm running a live webinar, when you do it, you're kind of like, oh, there's no way I'm going to forget that. Like it was so painful to get together and get started and do it the right way and get it working. And then a month goes past, because I do once a month live webinars, and the next month I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I just did like the last time, and to make it work, and which are the settings that I used, and how did I set this up. And anyway, so I write it all down in a Google Doc, and then we have a spreadsheet which gathers together like a table of contents all of the processes. So we call it the training catalogue. It's like my business training catalogue. So if anyone starts new in the business, they can actually go to this spreadsheet and look up, I need to know how to add someone manually to the mailing list for whatever reason, I don't know, or I need to update someone's contact details, or I need to, add an image to a blog post. And they can look up in the spreadsheet, and then there's a link to the Google Doc in the spreadsheet. They can click that and open it and see the process. And sometimes there's even a video, a walkthrough video in the spreadsheet as well, like a separate column with a spreadsheet, with a video link. And it might be someone talking through how to do that thing. So it works really well. And writing stuff down, when you're in the throes of that time, it seems like an extra hassle to write the steps down. But it's paid off for me so many times where sometimes I'll go, oh, how did I do that thing? And I'm like, I wonder if I wrote that. Oh my gosh, there's a whole document I wrote for myself, for my future self, and I didn't even remember I did it. And it's all there, and I'm like, thank you, me. Thank you, me.
Yeah, I know. I'm really bad at this part of like when I'm managing a project, like I front and end load them. So I am incredibly organized, and I have great foresight, and I plan. And then I like lose steam inevitably in the middle of any large project. And then when I get to that end part, the crunch where you have to like last minute, like tie up the loose ends, I always forget all the work I did early and then redo it.
Yes. It's so true. Yeah. I do the same.
Templates
I've just
are killer.
learned, I think I've learned what my weaknesses are over time. And that is one of the things is like just forgetting the process or what setting did I use when I uploaded that video, or, ScreenFlow when I'm making videos, like what is the best resolution, which is going to kind of look good but still work okay and not be too massive a file, and all of those things, just write it all down.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, not so much for lists, but for to-dos and projects. I use OmniFocus for my task management, and you've got there's this cool feature where you can like take, you could do a text file, but you could also just like in a note, you could have like, winter concert : and then that is the project title, and then a dash with a space, and then that's task 1, and then task 2, and you can sort of do like a bullet point list that you write in plain text, and then you can actually import it into OmniFocus, and like OmniFocus can be trained to look for certain placeholders that it'll interpret as due dates and deadlines and tags. So
awesome, yeah.
I can like say when I run my winter, I do actually have a template for the winter concert, and I can actually tell it the date of the concert, and then like the tasks will align themselves so that like when I'm looking at the today view inside of the app, like if like I don't have to pack the tuba into the car until like an hour before we leave for the school venue, but I have to make the programs a few days earlier. So those tasks are out of sight, out of mind until the actual day.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. And I'm excited because my 3/5 of my music team are now using OmniFocus, and I'm about to just buy it for the other two. Because they've announced collaboration is coming in the next year or so, like you can share a project.
Yeah. We use Asana in my business. And
you're good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, and to be honest, I think any of those apps, it doesn't matter which one you're using because all of them have strengths and weaknesses and they all kind of roughly do the same thing. But you have to commit to adopting it. That's the biggest thing I found. And if you're not all in, if you're working with other people, you need to all be all in with using Asana or whatever it is. And so we have in Asana, we have like template tasks, things that we do over and over and over. Like for instance, that monthly live webinar that I run, there's a series of things that need to happen to make that occur. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens before the event. Then there's the event happens, and then there's a lot of stuff that happens after it as well. We're up to, I think, 43 tasks to do with running a single webinar.
Wow.
And there's about 4 different people that do different parts of the process. So we all share this task. We all log in and see it. So a lot of the early things are me. It's me deciding the topic. It's me writing a description for the topic so that then it can go onto a sign-up page. Then someone has to make the sign-up page, and then someone has to set up the form behind the scenes so that when people put their name and address or email address in, that it gets tagged with they want to go to this webinar. And all of these things, like it's tiny, tiny steps, and so much goes into that process. And so, now we're up to 43 things. And then some people rely, like they need me to decide the topic and write the description before something else can happen. So they can see in Asana, Katie's done that. And I pop the link in there, or I attach the file to the task. And it's a great way if you are all committed to it.
I know, because these apps do the same thing. It's about like the implementation matters. So like these apps all do the same thing, but how they accomplish it is so different, and how people's brains work is so like everyone is so different that like it's so like I have this thing where I change my task app, like switch it up every like year and a half just for a couple months. I always come back to OmniFocus, but it's just like there's always going to be something where it's like, oh, it would just be nice if it worked like a little bit different because this is my digital brain we're dealing with here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you really have to find that thing that works for you personally. And it's funny, Asana ended up adding a separate view, which you can use as well as the original kind of list view. I like a list view, that's just me personally. But they also have this, Trello is another option that people use, and it's
Love
more
Trello.
like yeah, and I do too. It's just different, and I use it for certain things. But Asana ended up adding in essentially a Trello view, so that if you want to work like that in Asana, you can. But you can, for some things, work in the other way, the list view, and then you can also work in a calendar view if you want to. If you want to see when your tasks are on a calendar, it's great. There's a lot of options and flexibility. So
the task app that I recommend to most people is Todoist, and they just added the same Kanban. You can if you have a project and you have headings, you can click a button and then it'll flip it so that every heading is now a column with your tasks represented as little draggable cards. It's so good.
So good.
We use Trello for a couple of projects on my music team, and it's great. It's really whimsical. We have like our Hershey Park field trip. Rest in peace, Hershey Park field trip.
Oh, really? Yes, of course.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. I'm thinking, why?
But I added a little image from the web that's got roller coasters in the back, and then we do our pie fundraiser. I've got cherry pies in the background, and you can use a Kanban system. Can be used. You can think of it differently. Every column can be a project, and the cards can be tasks. Or our pie thing is every column is a part, because we get hundreds of pies in our cafeteria, and we have to sort them, and then students coordinate pickup times. So our orchestra teacher has organized that Trello board so that every column in the board is like last name initials A through F, and then as we organize the orders from each kid, their name gets moved from that column into a processed area. And
so you can see the process step by step. Yeah, fantastic.
So cool.
So good.
Love it. I wrote in the note here that maybe we could do a lightning round of fast tech tips, but then I didn't prepare any in my brain.
And I wrote down a few. I don't know if they're actually fantastic ones, but a few came to mind, recent things, and I was just in case we're doing that, I wrote it down.
I do have one. I mean, this has been surprisingly popular, so I wrote about it after seeing on Twitter a bunch of teachers be surprised to know that you can, in the accessibility settings of an iPhone, you can double or triple tap the Apple logo on the back, and you can actually program a number of system actions to occur.
I have done this.
It's great. Yeah. So things like anything from turning on the flashlight to taking a screenshot to turning up the volume or muting or unmuting the phone. The feature is called Back Tap, and you just go into the accessibility panel of settings, and you can make a triple or a double tap do a number of things, but you can assign a shortcut to the triple or the double back tap. And the shortcuts are, sometimes your phone will say hey, usually around this time you open this website. Do you want to make a shortcut out of it? And then it'll save those quick shortcuts into the Shortcuts app. Everyone has it installed on their phone, but most people put it in a folder somewhere.
You can make your crapple.
Yeah, right. I love it. The good old crapple folder. Yeah, but this is not a crapple app. It's
definitely not. No,
it's
I just
really
think
good.
people don't know.
Right. They don't know that you can not only can you have all these actions saved, where you can tap and have all these preset things you do commonly on your phone be launched within a tap, but you can also create a shortcut that strings together, literally hundreds of actions. So I have a good morning shortcut that reads me some text to remind me to take my medication. My morning meditation app Headspace opens a morning meditation, and then it starts a timer called waking up, getting ready for work. And I have the lights in the house turn on and the alarm disarms. All this stuff happens in one.
Yeah, cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so you can have that happen with a triple or a back tap. So, you can do nearly anything. And what music educators have told me they like to do is to create a Siri shortcut for opening the app Tonal Energy, and then setting that would be a double tap.
Yeah. Maybe I should do that one. So my double tap is set to open my camera, and my triple tap is screenshot. because
Nice.
I do both of those things often, and you kind of need to do them quickly when you need them.
Exactly.
But I have found the double tap one, when I put my phone down on my wooden desk, nearly every single time it goes, that's a double tap, you want to take a photo, and my camera app will open. I'm like, no, I don't know if I should change this or just alter the way I put my phone down on the table. So yeah, but it's super useful. And the screenshot one particularly, because it's just sometimes awkward. You're not always in a position to put your fingers on those two other buttons to take the screenshot. Sometimes it's just easier to do that triple tap on the back. So yeah, so I've been enjoying that too, but I might change the camera one. Maybe tonal energy would be good. Be a little reminder, like get your instrument out, like, oh, tonal energy's open.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. My double tap is to open a new note, and my triple tap is to. I have the big phone, and I use the because I'm home all the time now. I use my TV more, and I get to my TV remote through the control. You know, the control center where you like swipe in the upper right corner of your phone screen. That's where I get to the remote control for the Apple TV. And so my triple tap is the thing where it's like, I think it's called reachability. It's where it's like basically just takes the whole screen and like moves it down so you can reach the top without sliding your hand.
Good. Oh, that's good. Yeah, maybe I should test that out. Yeah, I need to explore some more things, but I'm just going to check what tips I wrote down. I don't know, they were just ones that were totally top of mind. Yesterday, here's a tip. It's such a silly one. I was recording videos about using Loom to make videos. So it was doing my head in a little bit yesterday because, you know, Loom, for those that might not know, it's a screencasting tool and it's free and it's like Screencastify, but it's the only one that is free that on Mac and Windows will record system audio. And so this is why I've incorporated into this course. And this is the desktop version of Loom. But yesterday I was actually using the Chrome extension version of Loom to make some videos. And so I had ScreenFlow recording my screen, using Loom to record my screen. It was very meta. And so I opened up a Google tab and I'm trying to get Loom. I hit record on ScreenFlow and then I'm recording on Loom. I'm trying to record on Loom. I'm trying to open it up and it just wouldn't open. And I'm like, oh man, maybe these two things are conflicting. Maybe it doesn't want me to try to attempt to use two screencasting tools at the same time. But I'm like, no, I know this can work fine. Anyway, I had forgotten. I've known this before and for some reason I had forgotten. You cannot launch Loom from a plain Google homepage site. You have to be on a website or you have a doc open or something. So for anyone who's using Loom and has found it's like not working in inverted commas, you might just be on the Google homepage. Don't go on the Google homepage. You need to open a website.
Why is that?
Silly tech tip. I don't know. I don't, from a tech point of view, I don't feel like it makes sense to me, but there you go. There it is. And I don't feel like it's very obvious I don't know that it's very obvious that Loom has said, be careful not to try and do this from a Google homepage.
Right.
I don't know. It's very strange, which is why I didn't really remember it. But the other thing I've been liking in Chrome, the Chrome browser, is to group tabs together. So it's a recent addition to the Chrome browser, I don't know, a few months ago maybe. And you can have, like when I'm working in the Chrome browser, you know, you have like 20 tabs open at once. And often 5 of them will be to do with a single thing that you're working on. And maybe another 3 are to do with something else and another 3 are to do with something else. And so you can actually right click on one of the tabs and choose add to group or something, whatever the text is. And you can you can label this group. So I, for instance, have a group at the moment for this video course. So it's got the initials of the course. And then I've got 3 tabs in that group. Once you've got a group started, you can drag other tabs into that group or right click on them and say, add it to this group. And so it kind of groups the tabs together. And then when you click on the first one, I think it is, or the title of the group, it will bunch them up together. So if you're not working on that thing right now and you're working on this other thing, you can bunch these ones up together and sort of like park them and reduce them down a little bit while you're doing this other thing, but you don't have to close them. And then you can work on your other thing and then bunch those ones up together. So I found this really useful in a webinar I ran in I feel like it was maybe the November webinar I did. I had to show a lot of things, and they were grouped into, like, I'm showing this thing first and this thing first, but for each thing I was showing, there was multiple tabs involved. So I grouped them like this, and it made it really visually clear for me running the session that these first 4 tabs are for this group, and then I just shut them down as I went through the webinar and completed each section. So it worked really well. So that's a good one. And you can give them pretty colours, each group. So I like that.
Yeah, I was today years old when I learned about tab groups in Chrome. So.
There you go. And so I learned, and like, I didn't magically know this because I'm some sort of like intuitive person, but I had heard about it on a podcast like a couple of months ago, and I was like, ooh, this tab groups thing sounds cool. Yeah, and it's super useful. It's not like magical. It doesn't do massive amounts of things, but it just is enough to visually organise stuff for me while I'm working.
This is awesome. I'm experimenting with this as you speak.
Yeah,
this
good.
Is so cool. So I do use Chrome. I used to use Safari, and there's like an issue. Well, I have to use Chrome for getting using a couple of plugins for our school's Google Meets, and I've there's things I like about Chrome. It's generally not very performant on the Mac, but I don't want to have 2 different web browsers. Also, Big Sur. Speaking of Big Sur issues, I feel like this is just because of my computer, though. It hasn't going. For some reason, it's got this weird bug where, like, when I click to move the window, like, it's very particular about where I click. I just keep clicking and dragging, and I'm having issues dragging my window, and which is a shame because the new Safari on Big Sur is really good, but Chrome it is for me.
I'm not willing to upgrade. I hold off for as long as possible with operating system upgrades on my Mac. I just...
It's good. My Mac Mini is the one that I keep. My Mac Mini is on a 2-year-old operating system. That's how I rationalize it.
Oh, yeah, good.
Oh, that's a good tip. All right. Here, I've already created a work group of tabs for relating to my job.
Nice.
It's a good visual aid because it's like I have this issue where sometimes I don't do this on mobile devices, but only on computers will I have open tabs be an indication that I have not made a decision yet about something.
Correct.
Like,
this is how I work too.
Yeah, I need to clip this somewhere or act upon this or whatever.
Yeah. You've got to do something with the tab that's open, and sometimes that's a super quick thing, or sometimes it's a job that takes 3 hours. Right. Yeah, that's it too. And I've spoken about that before, and everybody agrees. I'm like, open tabs this is my like to-do list for the moment, and got to get rid of them. So yeah, I'm constantly throughout the day thinking, do I need this tab open? Does this need to clutter my vision and make me feel like I have another thing to do? And no, it might be just because I checked a website address or something and had to copy it, and I don't need that open anymore. So close that thing and get it out of there.
This is exciting. All right, I'll do more group creation later. I'll have to get
in your own time. Yeah.
get back to my outline here. Those were good. Were those the ones you had? I only had my one.
Yeah, I what else did I have? Oh. Look, I'm going to just mention one more, if that's okay, because I just keep seeing, those questions you keep seeing pop up all the time, and you're like, oh my gosh, please, no more. And this is again to do with video recording, is the question that pops up on Facebook is, which screencasting app can I use that will record audio from my computer and it sounds good? Because I've tried, Loom, Screencastify, whatever, and it all sounds terrible. And the answer is actually not the software, it's you. It's like you're just not doing it the right way. Right. And so I ended up just making a quick explanation video, and people were like, oh, I didn't realise that there's 2 types of audio that you might want to capture when you're recording a video. It's you speaking into the microphone, or it's sound coming from a website or something that lives on your computer, like a file or an app like GarageBand, whatever. And you need to tell the software to capture that computer audio sound as computer audio. You do not want to be capturing it through your computer microphone. You don't want the sound coming out of the speakers and going back through the microphone, which is why it sounds terrible. So that's one of my tips. Please look into your record system audio options or record tab audio options in your screencasting software. And not all of them do it. That's also the problem, but both Screencastify and Loom will record tab audio, and that's only good if you're going to stay on that one tab and not go anywhere else in that one video. But Loom will do it across both Windows and Mac on the desktop version of Loom, and you can just turn it on and you're good to go. So there you go.
That is great to know. Good. All right.
Most tips I do out of frustration of seeing the same question pop up. You probably have that too.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's an indication that's like, all right, because, I generally will try to, like, if I put something out there, it's usually just something that I found interesting, but I'm trying to, since last March, like, recognize more often that there are things that I take for granted that I know that are won't take me any time or effort at all to just put out there. And I've been trying to do that more with the blog, but also with just responding to quick, like if I see a Facebook, one of the only tolerable things about Facebook is that you can learn things. So when I see it, it's like, oh, I can answer that question in 2 seconds, why not? And it's pretty good. The Facebook algorithm is good. Like if I see, like I'll often see a good question from a Facebook group I'm a member of, typically the first time I log in, like I won't have to scroll very far. Like the other day I opened it and the first question was about, should I use open broadcasting software to make my Google Meet better? And I was like, yes, you should.
Yes.
Thanks Facebook
or
for knowing.
Something like it.
Yeah. Or something like it. Right. Like, thanks for knowing that, that was the one that was in my wheelhouse and not the 87th person asking what's better, BandLab or Soundtrap.
I know. Yeah, I get them too. And I get tagged in a lot of posts as well because either people mention something that's on my website and they tag me for that reason, or they tag me because they think I'm probably going to know the answer or can help the person somehow. So I actually have not been on Facebook very much in the last week. So if I log in because I need to actually answer a message or something, there's like all these notifications from people who have tagged me, so I'm really sorry if I haven't gotten back to you if you've tagged me recently. But yes, it can be hard to keep up with it all. So many questions all the time. Totally.
But it is, being able to learn about technology and help others with technology is one of the few bright spots. So I accept it. I've been real close to the edge of like just, I wouldn't say I would ever delete Facebook, but I've been close to the edge of, I don't know what I would realistically do. I mean, I'm not going to be like Instagram and WhatsApp are going to stay on my phone no matter what so I'm not going to like make a public show of my leaving Facebook because I'm still giving them my data. But I guess like I could just delete the app.
I have. I periodically delete the app. Actually, I mostly in the general year, like school year, work year, whatever. I usually delete the Facebook app on a Sunday night and I reinstall it on a Friday night. And sometimes I don't reinstall it at all, and I just then only look at it on a web browser, like if I'm on my laptop. And it prevents me from that, I'll just check for 5 minutes and then I lose half an hour thing, because that's what happens on the phone all the time. And so I just don't have it on my phone. I have not had it on my phone right now for about probably 5 weeks or so. I've just not had it on my phone at all. The only time I put it back is if I know I'm going to an event where I'm going to want to share photos, and it's just easier to upload them from there. But sometimes I will even not do that. I will airdrop. This is ridiculous. I know I don't need to do this, but I will airdrop the photos from my phone to my laptop so I don't need to reinstall the Facebook app.
That's not ridiculous at all.
And just upload it. It just stops me from, getting sucked into that rabbit hole. Yeah. Way too easy.
You don't have TikTok installed on your phone, do you?
I do, and I don't dare open it because, oh my God, I love TikTok. So I'm going to tell you what's coming up on my podcast. I have planned already, it's going to probably be a blog post and a podcast episode. I've planned one called, I keep changing the number, but let's say 8 TikTok trends you should steal for the music classroom.
Right.
Or challenges, whatever. Because there's so much creativity. I said to my boys the other day, because of course it's their fault that I'm on TikTok at all.
Right.
And I said to them the other day, TikTok is honestly where I see the most creativity from the general public. I mean, yes, there's a lot of crap on there as well, as with every app, but generally speaking, once you've started using it and the algorithm speaks to your interests, there's so much creativity musically, choreography-wise. For goodness sake, there's a whole musical that's been put together through TikTok.
Right.
I don't know if you've caught up with Ratatouille, the musical.
Oh, I'm on it, yeah.
Holy moly, what an awesome, it's ridiculous and fantastic. And, this creativity's come out of lockdown and apps and connectivity with apps through, around the world. It's just phenomenal. So I am a big lover of TikTok, but it's yeah, you can be lost on there for quite a while.
Speaking of technology people we follow, one of my favorites is one of my favorite bloggers is named Ben Thompson, and he's got a website called Stratechery, and he writes more about like the industry and sort of the trends and he's got this like ongoing, really astute kind of angle on TikTok that it's like it sort of puts the power to create into every person's abilities.
And I think that's why I love it. Yeah.
But the way that but then on the kind of the other end of it, the algorithm is so good at targeting you specifically, not only because I think the thesis is more or less that because it levels the playing field and anyone can make content, there is lots of content. And because the content is so uniquely tailored to the user's interests due to the algorithm, it's like endless content for the user that is exactly what you want to see. So you just keep going and going and going and going and going.
And they're bite-sized. So like one of the things I like is the creative restriction of time that is on TikTok. Like it's short videos. It's, they're 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever. And when you're scrolling through, it's like just one more, just one more, just one more, just one more. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, 20 minutes has gone past and you just did not mean that. I really do love it. And also the funniest thing about TikTok is because it knows you so well, once you start liking videos and start following people, and it then feeds you more of what you like. And like my TikTok, if I open up my app and my 15-year-old son opens up his TikTok next to me, we laugh so hard about the differences between our feeds because his TikTok, it's like there's bodybuilding, there's basketball, there's, some music stuff too, but his feed is so different to mine. Mine's got it's got some educators, it's got a lot of music challenges, dance stuff. There's some gardening things in there because I'm into succulents at the moment. There's gardening tips and a whole stack of photography tips. Brilliant iPhone photography tips on TikTok, like bite-sized tip that you can learn in, 10 seconds, like how to take this cool photo. Anyway, I love it. It's great.
It's great. Yeah.
Lots of fun.
So much fun. Well, speaking of apps that are fun or should be deleted from your phone, do you want to do App of the Week?
Yeah, App of the Week. What did I say for App of the Week? Let me look at... Well... Yeah, for my phone, I don't know with the phone. It's super hard to narrow it down to just like one thing.
It doesn't have to be even a phone app.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It could just be not phone app. I was going to actually mention DaVinci Resolve only because I am delving into this at the moment and it's totally free and it's Windows and Mac. I was going to say Windows and PC. Windows and Mac. And the breadth of what you can do in this free app is really pretty mind-blowing. So I wanted to mention that as an option for teachers who are wanting to explore some kind of video editing, just because it's just so useful, and for free, it's just amazing what you can do and what you get. And I will preface that by saying you kind of need a semi-decent machine to run it on, and that's true of any video editing software. So it's not just because of DaVinci Resolve, but if you're going to be editing video, you can't be doing it like, I think the minimum requirement is Windows 10 and Mac, I don't know, Catalina or something, like whatever it is on there. So you need a semi-decent machine to run it on, but it's just, such a fantastic thing. So I was going to mention that. I have heard of it for a long time and not explored it, and you go, this is actually really good. So there you go. Is that all right for mine?
That's perfect. No, and exactly. I don't think it's been mentioned on the show. I've heard so much buzz about it lately, and as someone who's used both Adobe Premiere and Final Cut Pro, which I guess are like considered to be industry standards, I consider them as far as professional apps go to be actually fairly intuitive to get into the basics of. Do you think that there's got to be a catch when I hear about something so professional being free? Like, is it like more difficult to use, or do you find that it's just pretty much?
I think it's pretty intuitive. But having said that, I've done video editing in the past, and I'm not like an expert or anything, but I have an understanding of the concepts and how things work and maybe what to look for. They have some videos. So there's user-created videos on YouTube, like tutorials and things, and they are super useful. There's a number of channels where they mostly just do DaVinci Resolve tutorials, and they're really good. But they also have on their own website videos, which I don't know that they're actually on YouTube. They seem to be just on the website. So you might not see them if you go searching on the website. And I watched their editing one the other day, And it was just so good. And there was a whole kind of workflow that I didn't realize. I went, oh, right, that makes much more sense. That's much more efficient than what I was thinking, because I was kind of like dragging things onto the timeline and editing down there. No, there's a whole nother thing you can do. Right. And anyway, you can like tell it instantly to slot a video in to the middle of a whole heap of other clips, and it will move everything out of the way and slot it in. So just something like that. It's much easier than dragging everything that's in there and to make space and then dragging it all back so it all lines up. So just things like that, watching a video. So no, I think it's really quite intuitive. But having said that, if you've never used video editing software and you opened it up, you'd just go, oh my gosh, there's so much to see. I haven't really used Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro, so I don't know, how to compare it to those two. But it seems to me that DaVinci Resolve it's actually the go-to tool for color grading for a lot of video editors. So they may use Final Cut or Premiere first and do stuff, and then they might do color grading in Resolve. I could be totally incorrect with that, but that's what it seems to me. But it happens to be that it also has all the editing features in it as well, so you could just use that on its own. Yeah, and there's an upgraded version with extra features, but for music teachers, I don't think the extra features that you would upgrade for are probably what they need anyway. It would be overkill. So free version is all good.
Yeah, when I use professional software like that, I tend to need some of the things that are like just above the level of the basic entry. Like I need more than iMovie, but I certainly don't use more than 10% of what Final Cut is capable of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let's see. Did I have one in my note, don't I? Yeah, this is topical. So I feel like as we were like planning to meet for this, I embarrassed myself numerous times with my trying to understand time zones.
It's all right. We're weird over here anyway. But we did discover the issue, which I had actually forgotten about. So we call it Australian Eastern Standard Time. And so I'm on the eastern side of Australia, being in Victoria, and then there's New South Wales, which is in the east as well, and then we've got Tasmania. There's also Queensland. Queensland does not go and do daylight savings, even though it's also on the east coast of Australia. So it must have defaulted to a Queensland time for you, and yeah, it's different to us. So my dad lives in Queensland, so we constantly have this sort of joke around now where we are now an hour and apart from each other, but the rest of the year we are in the same time zone. It's just ridiculous. And there's jokes in Queensland about they don't want to do daylight savings because like the curtains will fade. I don't know if you have these jokes in the States, or the cows will get put off their milking. It's just this silly. No, that's not it. There's literally people who have written that in Facebook posts. Like, we don't want to switch. No, we're not, because over time there's often a push for them to move to daylight savings, like the rest of the East Coast. But then there'll be people protesting and saying that the curtains will fade or the cows will get put off their milking.
Right, exactly. Apparently we have something similar in Arizona, which I didn't know, because I asked my wife yesterday. I guess I should explain what I'm saying.
Yes,
when I'm trying to coordinate, I thought you were an hour off from what your actual time zone is, and was generally confused. But I asked my wife, I was like, am I going crazy? And she's like, well, I'm pretty sure Arizona has this too. So it's not unprecedented, but I was just like, anyway, my Apple pick of the week is it's called, and you had mentioned a really good one. Is it World Clock Buddy?
Time Buddy, I think. Yeah,
World Time Buddy.
I use a lot. Yeah,
which is a website.
It shows multiple at once. Yeah.
And it's a website and an app, and it's just a great time zone. It's just a great way to see lots of different time zones at once. I'm going to try to send you a quick screenshot of this so you can get an idea for the interface of this. I think I wonder if I can copy. I love the thing where you can, I do have another tip. If you copy something to the clipboard on your iPhone or iPad, you can paste it to another Apple device without doing any fancy stuff. Yeah, so there's my good one. So I just took a screenshot of CalZones, and I'm going to try to paste it into the chat here. I don't know if you can paste into the. Yeah, see, it's not going to let me do it. I probably need to save it as an image first. Well, I'll send you a screenshot. Basically, CalZones is an app that does more or less the same thing, but it has a really intuitive to read interface where it's it shows you the different time zones you've added to it in rows, and then underneath those rows, it has all of your calendar events in like horizontal rows. So as you scroll from left to right, you see like what time, not only what the different time zones that you have added to it relate to one another, but you see how the calendar events in your calendar relate to other time zones. So like great. I can see that tomorrow I have a grade 7 team meeting, and if for any reason I needed to know what time it would be where you live.
In Australia. For your year 17.
It would be 11 p.m. My 7th grade team meeting is at 11 p.m. for you tomorrow.
Sorry, I won't make it.
And I don't know how many people would have a use for this who are listening to this, but certainly for me, interviewing and talking to different people from all over, this is great, because then I can just sort of see where my calendar events line up and where the spaces are as they relate.
Can I give you one more, which is even better, which is actually what I use for my podcast interviews? I use Calendly.
Oh,
have you used that before?
So
you proactively say what time slots you're available. So like for me, I say, okay, I will allow people to make appointment bookings with me from 8 a.m. my time to midday my time, or 3 o'clock my time, whatever. I know for me, like people in the States, it's best if it's my morning up to sort of lunchtime. That works really well for people in the States. Anything that's late, like 4 or 5 p.m. for me, it's going to be getting too late for you guys. Like it's in the middle of the night. So with Calendly, I set up the time slots that I'm available, and then I send the link to the person, and basically they open it up and it translates instantly. What they are seeing on the screen is in their own time zone. And so they can say, yes, I'm available from 8 p.m. till 9 p.m. to talk to you, which is my 12 p.m. I'm very good with the Eastern EST time zone. Yeah, and they can just click the link to make the booking. So I was using the free version for quite some time just for podcast interview setup, but I've ended up upgrading to the paid version because it allows me to set up different types of appointments, each with their own calendar time slots. So for like members of my community, they can actually book a time with me if they just want to have a one-on-one chat for 30 minutes. So I have one set up for that. I have a podcast one which is set to be, I don't know, an hour or 90 minutes long, just in case we need extra time. And yeah, so all these different time slots and different calendars that people can book into. And it just does it all for you. It's so good. So, and also I like it because I am proactively saying when I'm available for you to book with me, as opposed to like, when works for you, or when works for you. Yeah, so it works well.
How would you say this compares to something like Doodle?
Oh, I think I've used that before. This seems much more detailed in terms of how you can tweak the setup for yourself, if you know what I mean. And you just hook it up to Zoom. So if you go to my Calendly, let's say I was interviewing next week, if you go to Calendly and book your time, it will automatically, as soon as you hit that submit button, it sends the meeting link to you in an email and to me as well. It says, Robby has booked a time with you for the Music Tech Teacher podcast. Here's the Zoom link. Okay. And then it auto goes into my Google Calendar as well. So everything's there. Yeah, and I have it set because the thing that I found, I actually have notifications turned. This is one of the only apps I have notifications turned on for on my phone. So if someone books an appointment with me, it will pop up on my phone and say, Robby has booked an appointment with you. Because in the past, sometimes I've checked my calendar like the night before and gone, someone's booked in for a podcast interview tomorrow morning. Oh my gosh. Mostly not. It's only happened maybe once. But yeah, I realised, oh my gosh, when you allow people to book with you, like you need to just be aware of who you've given the link to, who you're expecting an appointment from. Turn notifications on.
This is probably a saner way to set up when I do private lessons and I need to do a makeup lesson, like reschedule someone.
Absolutely. I know a number of music teachers who are doing who are using Calendly for that purpose, and because it hooks up to Zoom, it may hook up to other things. It integrates with a few things, but Zoom was highly attractive to me just for the podcast particularly.
If I sign up, so it's offering me to sign up with Google, will it still allow me to add my iCloud calendar?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Only thing, this sounds way fancier than Doodle, but the one thing I did like that Doodle would do is I could plug in my Outlook, iCloud, and Google Calendar accounts, and then it would look for the free space between those three accounts.
Right. Yeah.
And then that would be my available time.
I haven't used it like that, mainly because I want to be fairly tailored about the times that I offer. So I don't I never offer my Monday as an option for people to book in, for instance. I just always want Monday for me. So so even though my calendar might be empty on that day, I don't want people booking on that day. So
right.
I have set times. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, it does a lot of ninja things, and features get added often. So I need to look at it again and delve into it a bit more, because, features get added and then you realise 6 months down the track you have not been using an app in the most efficient way because something updated and you just didn't know. It's like,
yeah, I totally hear that. I got to do an honorable mention on the topic of CalZones real quick too. I was scrolling down in my outline and I was like, I have to mention. So the guy who makes this app is named David Smith. He is a single. Have you heard of this guy? Do you follow him on Twitter or anything?
No, I don't.
He is, because this relates to TikTok. I think you'll find this interesting.
I'm gonna look him up now.
His Twitter handle is _David Smith, and he makes tons of apps, small apps that do one thing and one thing really well. And he made an app called Widget Smith that blew up on TikTok, and he now all of a sudden
I have it because of that.
yeah. So between widgets now, you can put a calendar widget on your home screen of your phone that will basically show you your next couple events, and then it's just you don't have to open the calendar app to see them anymore. Well, he made an app where you can customize widgets that go on your home screen, which could be the calendar day it is, or a photos, cycle through photos from one of your favorite albums, or show your steps. He basically created a custom widget builder, and this app went viral because people were using this in combination with, in the Shortcuts app, everything always comes back around. You can basically save a shortcut as an app to your home screen and then make a custom icon for it. Well, one of the shortcuts you can do is to open an app. So you can make a shortcut called Open Twitter and then save that shortcut to your home screen with a custom Twitter icon. So basically you're basically theming your icons on your phone in combination with these fun widgets. So people are making these super artistic redesigns of their home screen, and I just had to mention him because he's an indie app developer success story.
I love it. I've been using it, and I totally went down that TikTok. It was again my kids' fault. So I'm showing Robby my screen where I've got the blue themed screen, and then I've got the green and rainbow theme, and then I've got this one which is all reds and yellows and oranges, plus his widget which shows a couple of photos which match the colour, because I'm obsessed with colour and making things match. But I'm particularly proud of my blue screen. but also, basically all the app icons are blue. But I went down that path. I tested out using that shortcut trick and customizing the thing. But I just got annoyed with the time it took when you tap on it to open the app. And I'm like, nah, it's just too... It took too long to launch it. It's quicker just to have the app. So I went down the color coding theme instead, or route, I should say, instead. But I do use a couple of his widgets. I've got a day and date one. So it's just really plain and clear at the top of the screen. And because sometimes you just need to see that information.
Yeah, of course.
And I've got the last Apple, my reminders app, the few things for today in my reminders app shows on another screen. So it's really good.
That's awesome. I love it. You're a power user. Can I? Is there any way I can put your beautiful screenshot in the notes for this episode? That would be
totally
cool.
Proud of my screen.
It's nice.
My boys have it too. My 15-year-old son, he's got a fantastic black screen. So what happens is when you want to do this, if you want to color code a page of apps, you basically go looking through your phone for all the blue apps. So you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook, you've got whatever else. And the funny thing is, I've ended up with apps on this page. Not because I use them a lot, but because they're blue. And you end up also going, I need one more app to fill the space on this page. And so my son, one of my sons, Josh, he's like, I went and downloaded this app specifically because it has a blue icon, because I needed to fill up my blue icon page. And I'm like, do you use the app? And he's like, no. Just needed it to fill his page up.
So funny. Yeah. Wow.
Hilarious.
I love it.
Gosh, yeah, it's fun. TikTok, it's a lot to answer for.
Totally. Should we do album? Do you want to move to that?
Yeah.
Or are you... Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited about album of the week. It's funny. I'm going first, obviously, but because I'm just
go for it.
It's funny. Since I started using Spotify, whenever, I don't know, a few years ago, whatever. I have listened to or discovered more new music than ever before in my whole life. Like I think a lot of people are fearful of the algorithms of apps that they use, but I'm loving the TikTok algorithm because
Right.
it feeds me things I want to see, and I'm loving the Spotify algorithm because, again, it pops up with things that, hey, you might like this. And I listen every week to the two playlists which it makes for you, which is Release Radar and whatever the other one is, which is kind of like stuff you might like. I don't know I can't remember what they call it. And so I listen to both of those, and then it helps me Discover Weekly. So it helps me discover things that I might not already know or have listened to, or artists, whatever. So two artists that I've discovered because of Spotify. I'm doing two, I'm sorry. There's this, when I'm working, I really need like acoustic music, quite gentle for the most part. And so I listened to this band, which just Spotify fed to me, which is called the Arcadian Wild. And like, who knew this band except Spotify told me about them. And so I listen to them all the time, and it's the most beautiful music. It's a guitarist and a mandolin player, and they sing, and there's often a female in there as well. I can't remember their names. There's a female singer as well, and she also plays, I think, violin. And then they have other people who sort of join with them on occasion. And I just love their music. It's just really beautiful. It's acoustic, it's intelligent songwriting. It's beautiful to listen to, and it really gets stuck in your head in a good way. So there's that. But then occasionally when I'm working, I really need music that peps me up and gets me going, like, oh my gosh, wake up and get some work done. So I will listen to usually kind of like funk, jazz kind of music, things with lots of horns in them, like horn line. And so Corey Wong, he's a guitarist, actually.
I love that guy.
I know, right? So he popped up. I knew of him like a little bit, but Spotify gave me one of his albums from last year was Live in Amsterdam. So it gave me like the title, the first track from that album. And I was like, when you're working, and I'm like, I had to stop working and just listen. It was so cool. He's with the Metropole Orchestra, and like there's a wicked horn line and a fantastic drummer and like all the things. And so I went and listened to all of his stuff pretty much.
Yeah. His band Wolfpack is wildly popular with music teachers everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, I love them. And I didn't make that connection until afterwards. I was like, who is this Corey Wong? Oh, right. He plays with them. So yeah, so I listened to him.
Well, you would like then, if you like acoustic music, he's put out 2 small records at the beginning of this fall. I forget what they're called. Like one of them is Trail Music,
I just saw today. I was looking him up today because of this, and I was like, oh, there's new stuff I haven't listened to of his, so I've got to go back and go back. Yeah, listen to that.
There's like a daytime and a nighttime version, and the daytime one has collaborations with Chris Thiele and Sierra Hull on mandolin and like all sorts of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's
so good.
It's
I just like intelligent music that makes you think. Dirty Loops also falls into this category, and Scary Pockets, who do the covers of stuff, like just really cool,
they're fantastic
stuff. Oh man, yeah,
they're awesome. Love it. Cool. All right,
tell me yours.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say this will, from at least from a technological perspective, this will compliment you, because one of the things I miss about Spotify is that good algorithm for learning music. One of the things I don't have as an Apple Music subscriber these days is, their algorithm for musical discovery is pretty bad. But, they're like all in on this idea that we'll curate the music for you, which is fine. It has its own strengths, but which is, I miss that feature. But one of the good things is that if I like an artist, I can usually find like a couple of playlists that the Apple Music team has curated with, just that artist's music. And Apple, for all the things I don't like about Apple, I do believe that somewhere in the company they are still like committed to music. They have like a core of people who really care, and I just feel like I listen to these. They're called Apple Music Essentials. They're playlists of a particular artist, and I get the feeling when I listen to these playlists that the people who put these playlists together like really understand what makes that artist tick, whether you are a seasoned listener or someone who's just discovered them for the first time. Because the song picks are always really a good balance of, here's something that was popular by them, here's something that was like a B-side, here's something that isn't popular or critically acclaimed, but it's something that like gets at the core of like who they are as musicians. So it's really good. I was listening to that podcast I told you about earlier, The Third Story, and I was listening to the Corey Corey Wong is on an episode of that show, but the Corey Henry episode. Corey Henry, the organ player, who's a lot of people know he's one of the keyboardists in the band Snarky Puppy, also widely popular.
I know. I love them too. Oh my gosh.
So
there's another Corey as well, I think. Because I was thinking Corey, the one I wanted to mention, and then I'm like, I got the wrong one at first, and I'm like, no, not that Corey, the other Corey. I don't think it was the one you mentioned.
Yeah, Corey Henry is great. Now, his album is not my pick, but his recent album that came out a few months ago is really, really quite good. And he was just mentioning like some of his influences growing up in the church.
Him, yes. He was the one I got mixed up with. I had him, I'm like, Corey Henry. Oh, no. Corey Wong. But yes, I love him too. I've got one of his on high repeat at the moment.
Yeah.
Called Rise.
He's excellent.
Yeah.
He's such a fantastic musician, and I've people like him who play on his level. Like you never know what to expect when you go into an interview, because it's like, I don't know. I didn't know what to expect, but he was just like a surprisingly, like he's known one of the YouTube videos that is popular with him in it is like him at age 4 playing organ in church, and it's just ridiculous what he's capable of. And I don't know. I just don't always know how to expect people like that to talk about their music making process. But it was just surprisingly relatable to me how he has grown musically. It wasn't like, it's just clear that like as prodigious as he is, like it comes from a place of like hard work and self-discovery, just like everyone else, however good at organ he was when he was 4, And he really gets into that and talks about his influences. And one of his influences is, a lot of his influences are gospel music. And he talks about a lot of like gospel artists and like what gospel sounds like in different states. Like what does Chicago gospel sound like? What does New York gospel sound like? And it's just really interesting. And someone he mentioned who I had heard of before, but who I'd never really taken a dive into is Ty Tribbett, who is just like a kind of like a Kirk Franklin figure, if you're familiar with him. It's just like a composer and a choral writer and arranger, and just someone who's like in the gospel community, like produces and writes a lot of music. Typically, some of his more famous songs they're called the Great Anointing, I think. They're a choir. And I was just like kind of excited to dig into this playlist this week, even though it's not technically an album. But there's just so much, I'm a drummer, so we like this kind of music because so much of it is like really chop heavy drum set playing and like groove oriented. Yeah. And his music is just pulling from so many genres and ideas. Like it'll be like heavy rock one second and ska the next, and then like trap hip hop the next, and then it'll suddenly go into a really traditional like 2-feel gospel break, and you're just sort of hearing it all put together. And I don't know, and it's also just very, very uplifting and energizing music to have on.
Yeah, it's good. It's what you need. Yeah. That sounds great. I'm going to explore that.
Yeah, Ty Tribbett. Awesome. We should do this again sometime. I'm getting a text from my wife that my son is like, "Where's Dad?" So it's like it's usually I read to him around this time. But
and usually my dog's like she's actually gone to sleep, which is a good thing. But yes, we should wind up. I'm off to a lunch thing actually shortly, so I've kind of written off most of today with doing other things. But it's good, it's nice, and it's been great to chat. So yes, we'll definitely have to do it again.
Are there any other places that people should look for your work online, or did we hit them all?
No, just if they want to connect with me, website's the best place, the catch-all for everything really. But if they want to follow me on Twitter, I am on Twitter quite a bit. Haven't been just for a little while, but I will get back to that as well. And Facebook as well, connect with me there. I'm in most of the groups. I don't know. I'm in a lot of groups.
Yeah, me too.
So you can pretty much always tag me in one of those and ask a question or something. So yeah, so it's always good. Good to connect.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Well, I'll link all that. I'm going to go do bedtime, I think.
Yes, definitely do that.
All right.
Great to talk to you.
So good to talk to you too. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it so much. I'm Robby Burns. Thanks for listening to Music Ed Tech Talk. You can find the show's page, show notes for the episode, and my blog at musicedtechtalk.com. You can subscribe to the blog posts through an RSS app of your choice, and you can subscribe to the podcast in the podcast app of your choice. You can now get blog posts delivered right into your email inbox once a week. Please rate and review this show in the podcast app of your choice. It absolutely helps. Word of mouth is helpful too, so please spread the word about the show. Learn more about my music and teaching career at robbyburns.com. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Robby Burns. See you next time.